We all got priorities in life, and this can be any number of things: family, finances, career, happiness, etc. But no matter what your priorities are, they will inevitably change at some point in your life. What's important today may not be nearly as important 1, 5, even 20 years from now. Here's how my priorities have changed over the years and what I've learned along the way. What's going on, guys? For those of you who are new here, my name is Kevin Jabal, physician entrepreneur based in Las Vegas, formerly in plastic surgery. Now, as we grow and mature, or as some people like to say, mature throughout our lives, we're faced with new challenges, and those challenges change how we view the world. And with that, our priorities change as well. Psychologist Erik Erikson theorized that we progress through 8 different stages of development throughout our lives, each one influenced by a variety of biological, psychological, and social factors. The first 4 stages of Erikson's theory of development take place from birth to our teenage years and help us figure out how to navigate the world and what happens to us. As we become teenagers and young adults, however, we begin to look more inward, and our development is largely shaped by our own actions. This is the time when we often come to terms with our identity and where we fit in the world at large. And I was no different. So let's start with my teenage years. In adolescence, our social lives, our social circles are a top priority. We care so much what people think, and we adapt our behaviors accordingly. And sometimes this can be beneficial and push us beyond our comfort zone in a positive way, but oftentimes it can be negative and prevent us from reaching our full potential. But regardless, our behaviors are influenced by those around us, whether that's friends, family, peers, even people we follow on social media. But then of course, if you get too caught up on expectations of others, then you're not really living true to yourself. And that disconnect is unfortunately very common. This is also something that comes up a lot when we talk about medicine, because a lot of people actually go into medicine due to parental pressure or the expectations of others onto them. As a result, these students often lack the intrinsic motivation necessary to succeed in med school and residency, and they find themselves pretty miserable. Now, like most other kids, I cared a lot what people thought in my teenage years. It wasn't until the end of my teenage years when I found myself thinking more about what I wanted out of life and what was important to me, instead of just thinking about my social circle, how I fit in, what's cool, what's not, things like that. Now, that being said, there is of course some nuance here, because some will say,
hey, don't care what people think. It doesn't matter at all.
But that doesn't really make sense when you dive deeper. You have to care what people think to a certain extent. Otherwise, how are you gonna navigate social situations or practice empathy? You'd be entirely narcissistic if you didn't care what other people thought at all. But instead of obsessing about what people think, you should understand how the opinions of others affect you in your life. So here's an example. In psychology, there's a concept that what is beautiful is good. In short, physically attractive individuals are often perceived and treated more positively in just daily social interactions than less attractive individuals. This halo effect influences how we perceive others and how others perceive us. Attractive individuals are often seen as more competent and more trustworthy than unattractive individuals. So although we can't let the opinions and beliefs of others entirely dictate our lives, we also can't deny human psychology. One of those things I can't believe we're doing this. One of those things for me has actually been hair loss. And when I talked to one of my family members about hair loss and what I should do, they said, hey,
just embrace it. No one cares.
But I beg to differ. It does matter to a certain extent. According to research, male pattern baldness is perceived as a disadvantage in terms of physical attractiveness, but also social attractiveness. Now, although these effects were reversible when people learned more information about those individuals, I realized that putting a little bit of effort into something like hair loss and appearance does have benefits, and it's probably worth it. It's not my highest top priority. At this point in my life, I'm not willing to spend hours a day and several thousands of dollars on appearance. However, I'm at least willing to put some effort into it. All right, now let's move on to my 20s. For me, 20s was all about exploring and practicing self-acceptance. Throughout our lives, but especially when we're young, we're often our worst critics. It's easy to get caught up in that feeling that we need to be perfect or that we're not enough in our current form. But it was during this time in my 20s that I realized the strengths, the things that I liked about myself. The flip side of them was also weaknesses, just in different contexts. So for instance, I've always been a very organized and regimented person, and this has helped me a lot with academic and professional pursuits. Being able to create a schedule, stick to it, be disciplined, that helped a lot in college with my GPA, MCAT, and getting into a good med school. And leaning into these strengths during med school also allowed me to score well on STEP and match into plastic surgery. And then after leaving residency, these same traits allowed me to build and grow a profitable and self-sustaining business. But on the other hand, in circumstances where you wanna more go with the flow, then of course being too structured and regimented can have its downsides. The story that always comes up for me is I went to Hawaii 2017 to present some plastic surgery research at a conference, and I had one full day there. I wanted to make it count. So I planned out everything to do on the Big Island for that day. How long it took to drive from point A to point B, how long I had at each point, all that stuff, where I was gonna eat, and I did it. Took me like 17 and a half hours. I was exhausted at the end. And then I flew back to California and then needed to recover from my trip to Hawaii. How backwards is that? But this works for other traits too. You can take just about any personality trait and find strengths and weaknesses depending on the context. Strengths and weaknesses are two sides of the same coin. And by understanding this duality, I was much better able to understand and accept my flaws. Now, I'm in my 30s, I'm a certified old man, and again, my priorities have shifted. So during my 20s, I placed a very heavy emphasis on work and productivity and accomplishment, and I derived a lot of value from that. And don't get me wrong, I'm actually glad that I did this because it helped me build some strong foundational habits. If you don't do this when you're young, you can get away with just kind of fooling around, right? But if you don't build those foundational habits, it's way harder to develop them as you get older. Again, it's not impossible, but it is much more difficult. But as I've gotten older and I've accomplished some of those goals that I set out for myself, or achieve certain levels of success that I wanted for myself, I've started to reflect on what is the actual point of success. And while success and achievement can bring you some level of happiness, it's usually short-lived. You feel good for a while, but eventually you get accustomed to it, right? It's hedonic adaptation. You strive for here, once you reach here, this becomes the new floor, and then you keep striving higher and higher. And what most people realize is that success isn't the end goal in and of itself. Rather, it is a stepping stone that allows you to do the things that bring you joy. And for most of us, myself included, this is usually some combination of social connection, meaning, and hobbies. This phenomenon isn't really unique, right? This is actually very reminiscent of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. For those who are unfamiliar, this essentially divides human needs into 5 levels on a pyramid. And of course, in order to go up the pyramid, each foundational lower level needs to first be met. At the bottom, there are your physiological needs. Think of these as the absolute minimum you need to survive. Air, food, water, shelter, sleep, etc. Above that is safety. This includes things like health, finances, having a good job, and so on. Next is love and belonging. This is having friends, family, a sense of community. After that, it's esteem, the need to feel respected and have freedom. Then at the very top, there's self-actualization, which is the desire to become the best version of ourselves that we can be. For a lot of us, over our lives, we will slowly move up the pyramid. And now over these last few years, a lot of the lower levels are becoming more and more taken care of. So now it's allowing me to focus on the higher levels as well. One thing that surprised me about my 30s is that I'm intentionally putting less time and effort and energy into maximizing productivity and efficiency, and instead putting more effort into things that bring me joy. One of those things is the Jabal and Cars YouTube channel that I started earlier this year, where I get to lean into my passion for cars and driving and racetracks and all that stuff. But because I put so much time and effort into building those foundational habits throughout my teens and 20s, I'm still able to achieve a high level of productivity and efficiency and output. This is why I think everyone should experience pushing their productivity to the limit at some point in their life. It's probably easiest to do in your 20s. The reason being that by doing this, you can learn what that limit is, and you can learn the strategies and techniques that make you far more efficient, far more productive, and you can get way more work done in a single unit of time. Once you have those techniques, you can then dial it back. So now I operate at, let's say 70% of what I used to, and you still have more time for yourself and for your other things because your baseline is just so much higher. And now with that extra time, I'm able to reallocate some of that time and effort into those things that really bring me joy. I think for a lot of people, after they achieve a certain level of professional accomplishment, they start focusing on meaning and fulfillment in their life. I find a lot of joy in just learning, right? Trying to understand the world around me, trying to understand myself and connecting with others. In this self-discovery, I'm learning that getting a pet dog might actually be great for me. Focusing on meaning, fulfillment, the future, also makes me think about being single versus being in a relationship, having a family, things like that. But I've only come to these kinds of realizations by constantly re-examining my priorities and making sure that my actions align with them. So I challenge everyone who's watching this video to do the same. Think about what your priorities are and whether or not your actions are in alignment with them. And if they aren't, make changes. If you can do that, you'll find yourself living a much happier and more fulfilling life. Thank you all so much for watching. Go check out what I wish I knew in my 20s or this other video. Much love, and I'll see you guys there.